would like to issue an apology to the families of the USS Fitzgerald fallen. 17th of June, 6 days ago, was the 2-year anniversary, and we should have done some type of an acknowledgement or commemoration video. We are going to do that today here. This article, though, from Stars and Stripes hadn't come out at this time. This new flag hadn't been unveiled, or at least nobody had reported it. They're going to fly this flag every 17th of June to honor those sailors that fell. It was the result of an enemy action, and this channel has called it correctly an attack. And we have compiled a body of information, 140 some videos, that backs up that claim. Now, in today's video, what I'm going to do, for those of you who are new to the channel, who haven't been around for 2 years, I'm going to walk through some of the very basics of what the Navy and our government would have you believe. And then I'm going to show you what really happened and how they talk out of both sides of their mouth. And so many questions haven't even been asked, much less answered. So without any further delay, let's start here. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer is one of the most maneuverable ships in the Navy. The ACX Crystal, a 29,000-ton, 733-foot-long, 14-story tall cargo ship, is not maneuverable at all. Yet somehow, with both vessels being aware of each other's presence 20 minutes before the collision, still accidentally hit each other? They both knew where each other was, speed of travel, direction of travel. Now, I don't care whether you're a trained Navy sailor or not. This wouldn't occur. It just wouldn't happen. See, here's one of the questions they can't answer. If the crew was so poorly trained that they were unable to do the very basic thing that they are charged with doing every day, operate the ship, don't run into things. If that were a challenge, they were so exhausted from an entire day of evolutions, or they were cross-decked, meaning they didn't know how to use the controls on the ship because they were trained on another one, or lack of motivation, or something like that. How is it that when the ship was hit, and then they were charged with doing something that most likely none of them had ever done in their entire military career, they did so in a way that was described as heroic and amazing, that they kept the ship from sinking, given the amount of damage that was done? How is that possible that on one hand the crew can be so terrible, and then on the other hand they can be so great? And why did nobody ever talk to the crew of the ACX Crystal? They were briefly interviewed by the Japanese, and nothing more was ever done. They were allowed to go on their way, even though the captain was from an area of the Philippines that at the time was controlled by ISIS. Nobody really brings that up, though. One of my favorite pictures here. This is a cargo vessel, giant cargo vessel. Did anyone ever ask why, in the moments prior to the collision, that it turned left toward the destroyer, and then right toward the destroyer, and then right again right before the collision? Turning these cargo vessels isn't that easy. And if you don't have to, you don't. And then, of course, we all know the story about the left-hand turn, and then the left-hand turn, the right-hand turn, and then the left-hand turn, and then the journey downrange, and then the giant 180-degree turn. And then, of course, it gets even better than that. It comes back here. Oh, by the way, did I mention that they changed the rates of reporting on their transponder? That's something that also isn't done. And after this alleged accidental collision, where there would have been general quarters alarms clanging all over the water out here, yet no one else responded. The ACX Crystal, having given the excuse that it made that turn to stay in this channel, oh, sorry, we got to cover the crayon drawing. See, the Navy, when they put out their report, decided to let their fourth graders grab a box of Crayolas and create what they saw to be the events of that night. This is what you're looking at, was the official report drawing of the events of that night. This was as detailed as they got. But back to the ACX Crystal, you see, down here, this is where that big turnaround happened. Instead of staying in the channel like they said they were going to, they went out here to the other side of this island, stopped, and loitered for over 5 hours, allowing the black box transponder to overwrite its data so that nobody could pull that data and look at it specifically. We were only able to find it because the data got uploaded to marinetraffic.com and they put it on YouTube. And we've covered that extensively. But you have to slow the video down to a quarter speed to see the change in the transponder rates. But nobody ever asked those questions. Then, of course, 2 months later, DDG 56 hit in a completely different area of the world, down by Singapore. And it's an amazing thing that the Navy was able to cook up this story about a fleet-wide training problem that, oh, I guess it was just the Obama Navy. But strangely now, 2 years on, they were able to just wave their magical Navy wand and fix the problem because we haven't seen anything since. Not since that 2-month period when North Korea was launching missile after missile after missile after missile. They even detonated a nuke during this time. All went away. No more problems. No more collisions. No more groundings. No more near misses. Not since DDG 56. And then we have the captains of the two ships that on DDG 56, they lost 10. And on DDG 62, the USS Fitzgerald, they lost 7. Charges dropped completely. No explanation given. Of course, they're not going to tell you why. They didn't want any of the real evidence to come out in court, which would have to have been the case. And there were so many discrepancies in the reports that there would have been harder questions asked. And they couldn't afford that. No one has also ever asked why the Navy brass allowed the vast majority of its high-up leadership to take their golden parachutes. Or why Admiral Aucoin, after the Japanese self-defense forces had told him clearly the collision happened at 1:30, reported the collision happening at 2:20. 3 times in this press conference. 3 times. He misstated the time. He also promised full cooperation, full and complete, total cooperation with the Japanese authorities, and then 3 days later, the entire crew was given non-disclosure agreements, and that was the end of that. I mean, I don't know, maybe things are new now, but when I was in the military and there were accidents like this, there was basically a generalized statement that you put out, and that was the end of it. You didn't put people in front of microphones. This was the beginning of the investigation, when they decided they had to put a guy out there to paint a face on the issue with the Fitzgerald. So many questions left unanswered. If you want, there is a playlist. USS Fitzgerald attack at the Florida Maquis, 132 videos. And to get started, the two videos that I would recommend the most would be February 4th, newest lie uncovered from the Navy Fitzgerald report exposed. This is the beginning of where we uncover the issue with the transponder. See, these big cargo ships have transponders that report at a certain rate, and usually they don't mess with them. But the ACX Crystal was messing with theirs and monkeying with theirs, and it's fairly complicated. I can't get into it now without making this video way too long, but basically they were using a fake transponder. They were using a Class B transponder when they should have been using a Class A. And then there's one that's basically June 29th, top 15 unexplained anomalies in the USS Fitzgerald event. This is pretty much a compendium of the 15 big screw-ups in their story when they tried to hide this. Because once one lie was uncovered, they tried to hide it with another lie, and then another one, and then another one, and it just all fell apart. And the worst part about this is the young men's names that were dragged through the mud. The people that for so long came to this platform and talked about how much they loved the military and how much they honored our heroes and all these thank you for our services and all this kind of stuff. But the first time it got tough, the first time you had an opportunity to stand by them when it was tough, you called them the Obama Navy. You had to point fingers instead of standing by these hardworking young men and women. That's what happened in 2017. The most nauseating thing I've ever seen in my life. This channel, maybe one, maybe two others, were the only ones that had the guts to stand up and say, no, we're standing for the sailors. Jennifer Hammonds was one of them. And before I say something I'll regret about the rest, I'm going to leave this be. But God bless every one of those families, every one of those sailors. They deserve more than what they got. They deserve better than what they got. And we're never going to forget, not here at the Florida Maquis. Like, share, subscribe.